Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video. And continuing today's live stream coverage, we're now going to talk about the two new skill fusions that are coming alongside the incoming Commander meta tomorrow night. So, honestly, there weren't any other options, right? If we look at the Commander category as it is right now, we have a whole bunch of EX units. You have a skill fusion. You're free to play. You have it. You're free to play. You don't. You have two. You don't. You have one. 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 You, and you're a 4-star, so you don't get one. So the only options, and the new incoming Fire Shizu, the OG Fire Shizu, she already has a skill fusion. So the only options to give skill fusions to were Gazel and Harmonizer Rimuru, who was the free unit given away this past month as celebration of the season 3 airing. Now we know that next month we're going to get Groom Rimuru, Light Rimuru, all the way down here somewhere. Where are you? This boy right here. We're going to get him for free, so I'll do a showcase for him when it comes to it. So he doesn't have a skill fusion either. But that's not really what we're talking about. We're talking about Commander. So if we look at it, we have the details. So Harmonizer Rimuru is getting a 15% alt gauge down currently. And it applies to multiple enemies. So if you're in an AoE fight and they're about to ult you and you're about to die, you can pop this 40 skill point skill and you could just remove part of their alt gauge, therefore preventing them from ulting you, at least for that turn. It's going to be upgraded. It's going to go down to a 25 cost, which is much more reasonable. And he's going to lower the alt gauge by 20%, which most of the times that difference does not really matter. Like, you're removing the alt, that's cool and all. An extra 5% doesn't really make that much of a difference. But, it is at least an upgrade because it's 15 points cheaper. And it's also getting a 2-turn defense debuff for everybody for 30%, which is very good. He is a defensive character. He's there to help you survive by healing you, by preventing them from nuking, and now you get some extra defense. So now he has extra viability as a defensive-oriented character who was just given away for free. However, the problem still remains that you must have this Rimuru at level 100 to even skill fuse him. So even though he was given away for free, unless you magically pull 5 more dupes of him somehow, you cannot skill fuse him. Remains one of the most unfortunate things regarding this game and the upgrading of older characters who are no longer viable. The game makes them somewhat viable, some better than others. It is not created equally, but what is definitely not created equally is the stupid dupe requirement for this game to get skill fusions done. So overall, I mean, he does have a good skill fusion for what he is meant to do. Lower cost, more gauge decrease, defense. These are all good things for a defensive focused character. So I'm not displeased with it. Gazel, funny enough, when the game first came out in October of 2021, Gazel was the highest damaging single target character in the game. And I am not kidding you. When this game originally came out and there were no metas, there were no forces, and all you had was the OG characters, Gazel by himself was a one-man army. He has attack buff, he gave himself a little bit of a crit chance, and then his second skill gave him crit damage and defense, which made him not only tankier, but it made him hit a lot harder if you were able to hit that 20% crit rate. Well, they're finally giving him a buff. Not a new unit, because he's the only Gazel so far, but they're giving him a buff. So now his 25% attack and 20% crit rate becomes 45% attack and guaranteed crits, which is pretty good. And Gazel, being one of the big 3, the units that give protection gauge on turn 1, he is a major target for people to throw dupes and shards into. More so than a lot of all the other skill fusions that have come out so far, minus the octagram ones. So chances are people do have Gazel at level 100, and they might have the ability to skill fuse him. Does that make him good nowadays? Not. It's debatable, sure. it does increase his damage, by all means. It means you no longer have to RNG yourself for that guaranteed crit. Uh, but 45% attack on a very, very old character with no EX alts or anything like that, it doesn't lend him to a lot of power. If you're a newer player, and because everyone told you to dupe him up, and you have him duped, and you can skill fuse him, but you're still not really that invested in the game, you don't have a bunch of great teams. In a lot of the early game content, yeah, sure, he can carry you. He can probably carry you now. You know, Conquest, I don't think can hold up to Gazel crits. So if he does, and you've got him maybe with the new Velzard, you know, Exalted Champion Velzard, you can put them together, and he'll get extra attack. He'll get the light attack from Velzard. That's cool. And then he can probably one-shot most of the Conquest bosses and some of the older Tempered Edge stages. So it's always kind of, do I want to say disappointing when they give damage buffs to old damage characters, because they can't do it anymore. They can't hold up. This alt right here for 490%, 450, oh, not even 490, does not mean jack crap to a single target EX alt by itself. So you know, it's cool that he got an upgrade. Most people are still only going to use him in a support slot, and giving him skill fusion doesn't change his stats at all to, you know, like buff up the support slot stats. So in the end, I mean, I really wouldn't skill fuse him if you're low on materials, or you're looking for someone to skill fuse. I don't think he's going to be a character that you need to push for. It's cool to get him to at least level 92, because then you unlock his full trait, and then you get the full 11 points of protection gauge at the start of battle. That's great. You don't really need to push him higher than 92 if you don't have Earth Millum and Dark Millum done either. You want to get them done, that way you have all of the protection trait turn 1. So trying to force your way to a level 100 Gazel just for this little buff right here, not really that important. And it just comes from him being horribly outdated. If they were to give old 5 stars EX alts, then we'd have a different story. Because he'd have, you know, well, he'd still be pretty low, really. Yeah, because his starting multiplier is low anyways. But it would give him more viability. But they haven't done that. And I don't know if they will. So right now, Gazel has a extra 20% attack and guaranteed crits. And we know that the incoming beatdown battle for this meta has crit resistance. So, I mean, let's pull that. What the? No, go back. Has crit resistance, indicated by this icon right here. That is the symbol for crit resistance. So you don't even want to crit this stage, right? You do want a physical character, which Gazel is. Hinata is light, so that, you know, that's cool. That matches up. But the fact that he's giving himself his attack buff and crit buff in one single skill means that you can never use him at his peak efficiency in this specific beatdown battle, because you're going to nerf your own damage, because you don't want to crit him. And that's a problem. And that's a major problem I have with a lot of the skill fusions that they always put out, is that they're not geared towards the current beatdown battle that they are being added to. Right? The Exalted Champions meta, they got a few skill fusions. Let's take a look at that really fast. And not a lot of them make a whole bunch of sense. Because you've got this Veldora, who is alt buffing. Yeah, cool. And then he's lowering pierce resistance. Well, this current beatdown battle that is active right now has a whole butt ton of pierce resistance, and that 20% or 20% does not offset it. So he's not going to be fully useful there. He's not going to be at full power. The Dark Millum that got skill fused, this one right here, what's her skills? Guaranteed crit for herself, right? Yeah, it goes up to guaranteed crits and crit resistance. The boss isn't critting you, for one. And you also, okay, well, this skill, okay, crit resistance, pierce resistance, he's not doing really either. He's just doing straight up attack. So, it's just kind of weird how the skill fusions aren't really built. He might have crit, actually, now that I think about it. Regardless, a lot of the skill fusions that they put out for every meta don't match what the meta actually wants. And it becomes a detriment. Because, yeah, you could do these old characters and you can make them a little bit better, but if you can't actually use them in the beatdown battle that they're being added to, then what's the frickin' point? What's the frickin' point that Gazel has guaranteed crits if you actively do not want to crit this stage? Well, I don't know. I don't know. There's no point. And that is my other biggest concern with skill fusions. Mainly the dupes requirement, and secondly, they never match up. So those are two big problems. That's a different video though. That's a user survey kind of thing right there. But that's gonna do it for me. We only have two of them. I kind of dragged this out a little bit because I'm kind of ranting about my displeasure. But let me know what you think of these two new skill fusions. Are they useful to you? Do you have the dupes for them to even do it? These are important questions. And yeah, that's about it. So I'm gonna go, guys. Take it easy, and I'll see you tomorrow night.